Call to order the Committee of the Whole for the City Council of Highland Park, Illinois, September 8th, 2025. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Councilmember Center.
Present.
Councilmember Brockman.
Here.
Councilmember Ross.
Here.
Councilmember Tapia.
Present.
Councilmember Littleworth.
Here.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Here.
Mayor Roderick.
Here, we have a quorum. I have a motion to approve the minutes of the rescheduled regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole that was held on August 11th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. We're going to rearrange our scheduled business. We were starting with the budget workshop, but we have our friends from the Business and Economic Development Advisory Group who are here. We want to get them home in time for dinner, so we'll start with a conversation around the Business Development Strategic Plan update.
Great, thank you,
Thanks.
Mayor. Good evening, everybody. So the first item on the agenda is the update of our Business and Economic Development Strategic Plan. As everybody knows, economic development is one of the city's core priorities, and the work related to business development is critical to our ongoing success in this endeavor. I do want to recognize Aaron Jason, one of our assistant city managers who oversees the business development division, and then Jamie Elder is our business development manager, and he's going to guide us through this presentation. One thing that I do want to emphasize is one of many reasons that we've been so successful in the area of business and economic development is because this is not just one person's responsibility. Everybody has a role in our success in the area of business development. And so that includes our staff, that includes the mayor and the city council. Want to recognize Erwin Bernstein, who's a member of our Business and Economic Development Advisory Group, and certainly the other volunteers as part of BDAG. Our property owners, we have Rick Nelson, who's one of our property owners that's here today, and really the community that supports our business, talks positively about Highland Park as a great place to do business, to raise a family, to visit here, to shop here, and to participate in everything that we have to offer. So this business development plan is guiding our efforts proposed for the next 5 years. We have a number of initiatives that we're going to outline that are recommended to be included in the plan. And then we'd really like to focus the PowerPoint on some specific policy initiatives that we are seeking your feedback on whether or not you want us to include them in the plan. So we're not really looking to really dive into details, but just as a high-level policy, do you want these reflected in the plan so eventually we can come back before you for further council dialogue and consideration. This is a committee of the whole meeting, so I'll just remind everybody that this is an opportunity for us to get feedback from the mayor and city council. So generally, we do not have the public engaged in this policy discussion, but based on this feedback, we're certainly going to do appropriate follow-up with BDAG, with our property owners, with the general public, because everyone's input is so important as part of this plan. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Jamie.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak and present for you again this evening. And so as the city manager already covered, this pretty much is business development strategic plan, pretty much goes over our existing work plan and also our future work plan that guides our day-to-day operations along with what we want to do in the future, and also present policy recommendations for the council. Here's some highlights for the 2022 to 2024 strategic development plan. As you see, we had the new incentive programs, our joint HP marketing campaign, software, signature event, and over $10 million infrastructure investments. And we also did some couple activities to help inform how we're going to look at the 2026 to 2029 strategic plan. So we had industry-focused forums on local business for local business stakeholders. So those forums commenced in January, and we had recently forums through our property owners, our business owners, and through various sectors all the way through the month of August. And we also conducted extensive research and analysis by the city's professional staff through our experiences, through our expertise, through our one-on-one feedback in real time, and a lot of the information that we were able to gather, and also looking at a lot of our peer communities. Here's some pictures from some of those roundtables we were able to have with the forums, with the service-based businesses and the retailers we had in the communities throughout the first 9 months of the year. This is very valuable insights we were able to gather that will help inform our strategic plan. Chairman Chris Falcon with the Business and Economic Development Advisory Group, he had a great model called Rosebud Thorn to allow us to gather not just the positive and negatives, but what are the opportunities going forward that would also allow us to, create a better business climate for the Highland Park community. And so looking forward, we want to condense from our previous strategic plan, we want to condense to 7 core focus areas, including the business retention and attraction, marketing, public education, local regional partnerships, policy considerations, administrative and regulatory processes, and development, redevelopment opportunities, along with infrastructure improvements. And some of the continued initiatives that we're doing include the removal of barriers to create more efficiencies for our businesses to start and grow in Highland Park. Business-to-business connectivity was a huge amount of feedback we received, as more of our businesses do want to connect with each other across sectors as well. We also implement the comprehensive active retention efforts program, which we're calling the CARE program in business development, which is how do we best support our existing businesses. So as we focus on new, how do we focus on retaining and expanding and making sure our existing businesses are successful as well. And destigmatizing parking perceptions, growing our signature events, evaluation of existing incentive programs, continued stakeholder forums, which is another lot of feedback we received, is that this is not one-off we want to do. We want to continue this into the future. And lastly, policy support for increasing evening vibrancy and activities. And so also with our new initiatives, one of the things we're really going to recommend is how do we update the plan from 3 years to 5 years. And then I want to identify and prioritize certain themes in the plan. And that includes public-private partnerships, cohesive brand strategy, connectivity of business areas with natural assets, placemaking investments in Port Clinton, and then seasonal art installations. So with that, I'll turn over to Aaron Jason to finish.
I have a clicker for me. We thought we'd tag team for you tonight. So as Jamie mentioned, these are all things that we heard from those stakeholder groups, so we want to incorporate it automatically. They're automatic incorporations. What we really need your policy feedback on are the next 5 items. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each one, and then we'll revisit them so we can talk about each one. So the first one is incentives for non-sales tax producing businesses. We did touch on this in a committee of the whole not too long ago. This came out of conversations with BDAG on incentives. They asked us to consider expanding incentives to non-sales tax producing businesses. One of the main components of that was that the former exterior grant program, when it was in its original iteration, did allow some funding towards non-sales tax producing businesses, utilized for signage and other things for exterior. So some of the advantages are outlined here. Basically, this is the support of local businesses, would provide, similarly like what we do with our other incentives, that 50-50 match up to a certain amount. It's a great attraction and retention tool, and there's an emphasis on the core priority of economic development with this maneuver. Other considerations, though, this isn't budgeted. We've talked about that many times in this room. This is not a budgeted incentive, and this could significantly, even at a lower max grant amount, this could significantly take away from other programming because there are 800 plus businesses that could potentially be eligible for this. Traditionally, incentives are funded from sales tax revenues, so usually we can kind of justify we're giving incentives because we're getting sales tax dollars from that and putting it right back into the pot and kind of having a circular economy in that way for incentives. That is not the case with a non-sales tax producing business. There is concern with public funds for private investment. We've talked about that many times in this room. And it could be, like this is like a positive consideration, but it could be limited, as we mentioned, just to exterior improvements at that lower threshold, that lower grant threshold. The second item we want your policy feedback on is whether or not you want us to include revisiting liquor classifications that promote nightlife, specifically the word bar. And we've already made some changes. This group has already made some great changes to allow for liquor license holders to have a limited food service. But there's still that stigma of people want a bar, and with that is main focus there is seating. Bars traditionally have a large bar seating area and very minimal traditional tables and chairs outside of that. So it's something we want us to look at together with you. Also incorporating their entertainment as a right, not a special condition. Advantage of that, supports local business, drives nightlife. Complementary to restaurants and event venues, places like the theater. it certainly addresses community and stakeholder feedback. We've all heard this. I know I've heard many of you say when you were door-to-door campaigning, you heard about this. And then again, this is an emphasis core priority on vibrancy. Considerations, though, that we'd like you to take into think about while you're considering this, the concerns related to alcohol-focused business models. There is concern about places that aren't having a sit-down meal, or you're not having a sit-down meal first and consuming alcohol. So consideration of that. Concern with disruption to residential properties in business districts. We do hear from those persons who live in residential properties in our business districts when there is a lot of night crowd coming out of restaurants and places where they've been drinking in the evening. And then, of course, possible increases to DUIs and other items along that line. So the third one is penalty-focused programs to address vacant commercial properties. This is something I'm glad Mr. Bernstein is here, Advisor Bernstein. He was very passionate about this with BDAG. Since 2023, we've been talking about this in BDAG. Council talked about it in January, Committee of the Whole. BDAG talked about it again in February. So there's a couple different ways we could approach this. There's two different items I want to know your feedback on. One is a vacant commercial property registration. The other is the establishment of vacant properties as a nuisance. And I do actually want to read to you on this part. Sorry, you know I hate reading. But for the nuisance property, and this is directly from the memo that Corporation Council included in the staff and Corporation Council memo that you had in January. So for the registration, several municipalities, including Chicago, Waukegan, and Danville, require owners of vacant properties to register with the local government. Registration ordinance typically require disclosure of property information, the date of vacancy, the owner's long-term plans, and insurance coverage. Registration ordinances also often establish vacant property maintenance standards. Danville imposes a $100 fee, Waukegan $250, and Chicago charges between $250 and $500. So again, if you're interested in pursuing this, I'm not going to read all the advantages and considerations here because there's a lot on that screen, but that's one way we can tackle this. And you'll see one of my bullet points there is the stick over carrot approach. We've tried the carrot many times in this community, and we've heard from this table it's time for the stick. So that's one thing, and it's a great narrative to change, a narrative catalyst change agent to say, look, this is what we're doing to combat this. The other possibility here is the nuisance property, establishing them as nuisance properties. So the city may be able to designate vacant properties as nuisances and then impose requirements for abatement of those nuisances. While the city has broad authority under Illinois law to define and abate nuisances, Corporation Council advises that a nuisance-style regulation is more likely to survive a challenge if it directs certain property maintenance and management actions, as opposed to being merely a mechanism for code enforcement and fines. A nuisance ordinance that is used to fine the owner of a vacant property may be perceived similarly as a vacancy tax. So that's just something I want you to keep in mind while we have that discussion. And again, some of the other considerations. So I talked about some of the positives of this, right? Some of the negatives are it could affect our relationships with property owners. I like to think, Rick, please hopefully nod along with me, that we have great relationships with our property owners in this community, and we'd like to continue that. But there are other things that could be considered non-business friendly. It's not prevalent in the region. You heard the 3 communities that have the vacant property registration. So just some things to think about. And I would say number one of that is potentially resulting in undesirable tenants. Will some kind of maneuver like this pressure landlords to just put in anyone instead of someone that would be of quality and caliber that we would like to see? So the fourth item we're requesting policy consideration feedback on is exploring redevelopment of city-owned property. We've heard this from several elected officials once the decision was made not to redo the lot into an event space, into a more permanent lot space, but also in other conversations to look at the metro lots and specifically as opportunities. There's a potential increased density. You know, we love the nightlife. We love people walking around. We like people shopping in our stores. There's an opportunity to promote affordable workforce housing. That's something we've heard in stakeholder feedback. It's hard for people's workforce to live in town. There's an opportunity for public-private amenities on site. Again, vibrancy, core priority, but there are some considerations. There's a loss of significant surface level parking. It could affect redevelopment of private parcels in the area, of which we know there's been some chatter about over the last few years. And then there's a lot of unknown when it comes to Metro themselves. Will they even let us do this? So again, we're not asking yes, no, do we want to do this? We're asking, do you want us to look at this within the next 5-year life of the plan? And then last on the policy considerations is exploring closure of portions of Central Avenue, specifically between 1st and 2nd Street. This is actually one of the major projects on the major project plan for CMO to kind of start looking at this. And that was, this year we've started to look at that. So we want to look at it in advance of the strat plan to see if this is something that we want to move forward. So some advantages, great opportunities for community programming, gathering people of all ages to come and activate the downtown. Again, emphasis on core priority of vibrancy. This isn't budgeted in the CIP, and I know that the next presentation is going to be a lot about what we can't do in the CIP this year, so I want to make sure that we're all aware of that, because this would be potentially a significant infrastructure investment, as well as staffing time and other things related to that. Direct impact on access to central business districts east of the railroad tracks, direct impact on access to businesses within the footprint of the closure, reduction of on-street parking, impact on traffic patterns, not just consumers, but also delivery vehicles. And we would definitely, with this project, if this was to move forward, have to do several related studies for it. So, and I think one of the things that affects us the most, it would require day and night programming. So we don't necessarily have capacity for that at this point, so it's something to consider. So those are my 5 items. And Mayor, if you want to take them one at a time.
Sure. Well, first I just want to say thank you to you, Aaron, to Jamie, to Corey. You guys are doing incredible work. Those forums were phenomenal, and I thought they provided not just deep conversations, but candid conversations, things that really kind of honed in on nuances that I thought were really important. Everybody's passionate about supporting our local economy. They're passionate about vibrancy as one of our priorities. 6 bubbles not up there yet, but we'll get it there. And I just appreciate all that your team has been doing. We were just at the 5th anniversary celebration for Pixca, and people were like, do you feel the vibrancy in this community? Do you feel the support of this community? So just wanted to say thank you for those candid and productive conversations.
Thank you.
A couple of things that I'll just share my points of view, and we can go around the table. If you want us to take it one by one,
We can maybe do it, one by one, and
then we can do
get-
subject matter specific
That's okay.
conversations. The incentives for the non-sales tax producing business, I'm not going to speak for Councilmember Bloomberg, but I had it was a bit of a hurdle for me to get over giving public dollars to private entities, but I understood that that might help be a catalyst for returns on investment. If we're not creating sales tax revenue, much as I love those businesses, support those businesses, like the feet on the street maybe that those businesses bring, I just don't see where that ends up being a constructive thing for the community. To me, it feels a little bit too far. So I would not be supportive of that. Councilmember Bloomberg? I'll just go around the table.
I don't think I've changed too much in terms of my position.
Please restate your position.
I'm not comfortable contributing money to attract new businesses. I think
Non-sales tax.
non-sales tax producing businesses. I have generally been okay with things like the facade improvement loans, which are modest and are sort of the edge of where I think the city's obligation ends and private obligation begins. But the question arose when we first started these boutique incentive programs, are we ever going to get the money back? In a year, in 3 years, in 5 years? And the answer is no. The answer was no, not just from that individual business, but even if that individual business or businesses are successful in attracting more businesses, it never reaches a tipping point. Maybe in 10 years when we're going to deal with unforeseen other issues. So to me, it feels like government becoming involved in private affairs that we shouldn't be involved in.
Thanks. Councilmember Buckman?
So I would say I actually would be in favor of this, as I have heard from several businesses, just, even if it's just signage or small dollar amounts to help some of these businesses, because one in particular that I'm thinking of that's trying to expand, and like this, I would be in favor of it and helping these existing businesses that have been around for a while, that just are looking for just a small dollar amount, 50-50 split. So that's what
So I have a question, because you said something, I just want clarification on it. To date, have we given like a for an awning, have we given any business that is not sales tax producing any incentive or any money?
Yes, under the old exterior, like small business facade grant, which was a much lower amount that you could apply for. There were some businesses that weren't necessarily totally non-sales tax producing, but minimal sales tax producing. So for example, one of our fitness establishments received a grant towards signage. They sell some products within their gym, but it's nowhere near the footprint of like a regular
It's
retail.
not their principal.
Correct.
Okay. And what was the limit in the past on those?
I was gonna say 5,000 grant.
5,000. And was it a matching grant?
It was matching, correct.
Okay, so I actually concur with the mayor. I think that we have a really good justification in terms of the sales tax revenue. And that's why I was able to justify some of these incentives, because I do see it coming back in a different way, but at least I can justify it in terms of sales tax dollars. But I would be in favor of the very limited portion. You just said a 50-50 contribution, a cap of $5,000 on it, and that is the only way in which I could see it getting to a non-sales producing business.
So that's what we
Sales
already
tax.
have in place, right?
So-
Or have you taken?
No, that does
I
not
think that was
exist
taken
anymore.
away.
Okay, got
So
it.
Because now
that's
it's
what I would,
20,000.
Okay, so you would bring back up
that.
to 5 with
Up to
50/50?
5, right, so
Okay.
that they're definitely putting in money too, but to me, it goes toward the entire beautification of our city. And so if there are some storefronts or whatever that are not sales tax revenue producing, I would like to see them enhanced also, but I cannot justify it financially other than with that de minimis amount and the 50-50 contribution. So that's where I stand.
Great, thank you. John?
Point of clarification here. Are you just trying to gather feedback on whether you should spend time to further research this, right? Not
Correct.
necessarily put it into place.
Correct.
Okay, so I think my answer is a little bit nuanced. Yes, I believe we should continue to explore this. I think we often use words like, I feel like this, or I believe this. There's a lot of data here that we have access to that can tell us whether or not there's economic benefit, right? By tracing pedestrian traffic through Placer AI or others to see if by them coming to a service business, they're then going to sales tax revenue generating businesses, A, B, and C, to therefore support the economic investment. So I would say there's a high bar probably to get there, but let's do the research to figure out if it makes sense.
You mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I appreciate that you asked for clarification about is an exploration. I'd like more information about this. I'm not even ready to cap it. I support the idea. Probably within limits. I would just like to know more.
Okay, Andre?
Yeah, I like going back to how it was,
Okay.
and at the $5,000 gap. And my rationale is that we are providing incentives for those that are tax revenue producing for a good economic reason. They're bringing in money. Okay, got it. But from a consistency perspective of our business districts, that the resident and the visitor experiences through the downtown as a whole. So, you see, nice awning, move this, move that, and then the other ones that didn't have the little bit of extra to just help them get over the hump. So we don't create, but we don't incentivize sort of an elevation of the entire business district in terms of its aesthetics. And I think there is a responsibility we have to help just a little bit. And because the economic argument is not as strong, I'm in favor of not being as
Aggressive.
generous,
Okay.
but helping them do something that meets, I would say, one of our goals, which is a consistent, beautification of our downtown. And anybody who does interior and exterior design knows that you just can't elevate, central business district with $11 million and then just have that spot just kind of being a little run down when we could have just helped them a little bit along the way.
What about businesses not in the central business district? What about Crossroads? What about Ravinia? What about
Well, yeah, I would make the same argument.
Skokie Corridor? So anywhere
Yeah,
in the
anywhere,
city?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
up to 5,000.
Yeah, and I would limit it not only to the 5,000, but the exterior, because that would fit the
Yeah.
argument that
It's
some of us are making, is
beautification,
beautification
Okay,
that benefits the exterior, but not the inside, which had another argument for the tax revenue producing ones.
okay. I'd be inclined to change my mind and go along with that. I think that had a purpose in the past, but that doesn't give you much direction, because now you've got 3.
No, we'll include it in the plan. Yeah, we'll include it in the
Okay.
plan, and then we'll come back with a proposed policy consideration, and then we'll have a more in-depth conversation about that.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
Okay.
Yes, you.
I have a question. And this isn't helpful, that I don't know what kind of business, I'm imagining in a business that's
A pediatrician. Or
A nail
Or
salon.
nails, well, nail salons,
Yeah,
they still sell.
but I mean, I'm
Some-
imagining, this is directed at existing
A realtor.
businesses, but I mean, if we wanted to recruit, incentivize a business that I can't picture yet, but, you know, something new and unusual, do we
So
have
I think-
tools for
Yeah,
that?
I think what you've given us is the majority support, looking at a program to incentivize non-sales tax generators.
That's
So
right.
we
That's the
will,
question.
right, we'll take
Right.
that direction, we'll come back, we'll put a couple of concepts together, and then present to you something for a more in-depth discussion.
Tony?
I have one particular question that you just raised. What about a place like Crossroads, which is an entirely self-contained,
Privately owned.
single owner
Right.
property? Don't they have an obligation to maintain the appearance of their property throughout, including the parking lot, the limited landscaping they have, the storefronts, the access? I'm not sure how we distinguish that, but I think that ought to at least be examined. I understand the arguments with respect to our primary business districts, our main business districts, and there are several of them. And I understand Councilmember Tapia's argument that, you know, if you're going to do this, you have to sort of do it for all the fronts. And as I voiced initially, I'm sort of okay with facade improvement issues, because I think that has to do with the city's obligations up to the property line. But when you get into larger properties like that are privately owned, I don't know if that's something that should be distinguished.
Okay.
But can you distinguish between
Right.
that versus singular building, Rick Nelson's building versus all of
Several
them?
tenants.
Yeah,
Right.
We'll look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
to be
Good
continued.
point.
Okay,
Okay.
great, thank you. All right.
Right, so the next item for policy consideration, and this is the question, do you want us to revisit this? Not like the nuts and bolts of it right now, but just do you even want us to spend time and bring this back to you with different iterations? Is revisiting liquor license classifications to promote nightlife, AKA bars.
From the community that was dry until 1972?
Oh my God.
74? Something like that. I can just tell you that at least in Ravinia, I've heard from many neighbors who are apoplectic that there are things that feel like bars that are not quite bars, and they are like, how dare you? So, you know, I don't know that people have talked to the full community to get a full understanding of where people are. And, you know, we don't compare ourselves to others. We are fabulous on our own accord. But I do know, just from kind of keeping an eye on this issue, that there are public safety issues that come along with bars that aren't necessarily there with restaurants. And so, you know, not to put you on the spot, Chief, but, you know, I kind of feel like there are other aspects to what happens on a public safety standpoint, specific to how late is this open, specific to people being inebriated, and beyond the DUIs. Just sort of who's attracted to a bar versus a restaurant situation. Not to diminish people who like bars, but that's just sort of my concern. Tony?
I think I share those concerns. I'm happy to take additional data regarding the advantages and the concerns, but I think the concerns have been pretty well established, not merely anecdotally, but in a more data-driven aspect in our past discussions. So I'm legitimately concerned about the deleterious effects that it can have. I understand it can drive vibrancy, I get that, but I think the net result may be adverse to residents in the end.
Thank you. Appreciate you bringing the word deleterious.
Really impressed.
Yeah, that was like a little SAT word.
I would like to at least explore and get more data, as I hear from a lot of people, more nightlife and Highland Park, all of that over and over and over again, just to explore it, and that could bring more vibrancy into town and have more for people to do, after a movie, go to a bar, just to explore it, so, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to chuckle, but I just
Yeah.
think about, 8:45 when nobody's around, and I'm like, would a bar make a difference? I'm not sure at this point, but anyway, Annette.
So I do want to explore it more. I would like you all to do that. One of the things I would like to see if you could discern is if we restricted it to certain areas. So for example, if it was only in the central business district where it's a little less residential. And so if you could check out areas, and if it's possible to legally proscribe or prohibit.
You can
Sure.
And that
This
is
is
a way-
liquor, you can do anything you want.
Yeah, I believe we've done that. But
Could
yeah,
have an
so
overlay, yeah.
I would like to have that type of thought process before I either,
Would you want to see a limit to the number as well?
yes,
Okay.
yes. Because I think that if we're gonna do this, I'd like to see it phased in or on a limited basis and see how the community does. Thank you, Nancy.
John?
Thank you, Nan.
Yeah, good comments, Councilmember Littler. I agree wholeheartedly. I'm supportive of revisiting this. I also have confidence that our city staff and the police and all powers that be would make sure that we set appropriate, rules, regulations, guidelines to ensure that our residents are not overly disrupted. And I don't think by revisiting this, we're necessarily creating Bourbon Street in Highland Park, right? I think we're just trying to continue to support, vibrancy and attractiveness to our town to continue to support our businesses.
I forgot one sentence.
Sure.
I'm really sorry, I remembered one sentence. Since the influx after COVID of all these young families, and what I witnessed literally every Thursday night is not drunken families, but a very wonderful vibe. And I think that this sort of shows that we as a council are looking in terms of leadership to having that spread into our community in a slightly different way. And that's why I'd like to do it, have it studied, but on a very limited basis in terms of phasing it in. But I do think our community really brought down the age in some ways, and so many new young families have entered. And I want them to have a place to go rather than in other communities.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to keep them.
I think we all share that interest, absolutely.
Thank you, sorry.
I'm sure the bar is
Get back.
versus trampoline parks, but yeah, well.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
I agree with, I support exploring this as well, and, I'm sure that whatever we do will be really thoughtfully done. And so I'm not worried about this just being out of control, or, I think that we'll, as I said, do it thoughtfully. And I think too that maybe, it could be a piece potentially of the puzzle of how we keep businesses open later. I mean, I don't know that would necessarily help, but I keep hearing about why do all the businesses close down at 5 o'clock?
People aren't coming, but yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, maybe it's a piece of the puzzle of how we get a shift to staying open later.
Old timers will remind you that on Thursdays, it was late shopping night in Highland Park, and so they would stay open till 7 or 9, and people knew that.
We need
Would
to
plan accordingly.
get something back. I think it's even, like, I just think of my brother visiting from New York City and just being floored that at 5 o'clock it was just like so quiet. And I'd like a solution to that. And I think that I think we're all aware that, you know, even though some of the businesses would like that to happen, they can't do it one at a time.
Right.
It has to be done as a group. They need, you know, momentum, they need mass
Right.
to do it,
Right.
so.
Right. And I think that's why it's important for staff, we'll have those conversations with the businesses, absolutely. Andres?
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Littleworth's statement about having staff look at, you know, maybe making distinctions between the different business districts. You know, if you think about Remedy Business District, there's already 3 or 4 establishments that actually have good bars and food. And given the closeness of the residentialness of it, if I would just venture a personal opinion, that seems to be about the limit, right?
Yeah.
In terms of beyond that, it's just like, and even now it's a little bit, you know, but okay, you know, we're managing it.
4 in 2 blocks.
Yeah. So in that, I would be like, no, that feels different than the Central Business District.
Right.
Now flip it over to the Central Business District. I think we really need more infusion of energy there, especially with the investment that we made on infrastructure, incentives, the restaurants that have moved in, as the ones that are going to move in there. And one of the things that we know about coffee shops and about bars is that they're in between spaces. They're the in between movie and a dinner, or, you know, lunch and shopping. You know, it's that, and we need more in between. We have good in between spaces for the day. We have plenty of, you know, shops, coffee. That's great, and it works. We don't have in between spaces at night. And so when you're trying to figure out what to do in between the movie and the dinner, or before the dinner, or even after the movie, you know, that's where you have a captive audience, but they don't have a place to go. And bars are the most natural in-between place. And I think from a strategic planning perspective, our downtown is missing that in-between space for nighttime. And I think that is a case to really look into bars.
So one question that I have, and you may not know the answer, is aside from Highland, which of our peer communities allow bars?
That'll be part of our research.
Exactly, so
Yeah.
that's sort of
Yeah.
something that I think is important to check into.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Marissa.
And also, I guess, Andres, you had made that point about in between. Like, would that also be if, like, an entertainment? Like, I was like thinking of going listen to a band, and then you also at the bar too. So that's also a place to go. But I don't know if they have that in surrounding suburbs either. I mean, I know Highwood does, but this is another.
Yeah, we could
Idea.
certainly look at that as part of the considerations. Yeah.
And in fact, just one more point. I think we're also in a new era where, you know, bars are not just, you know, the traditional taverns, right? I mean, now we have places where there's liquor being served, where there's families coming in, and it's managed very well and healthfully. And even bars not to be the best place. I mean, it could be a cocktail lounge concept, right? I mean, it's more elevated, you know, and more elegant, and more part of really the Highland Park aesthetic and lifestyle. So I think we also have to kind of move off the concept of bar, that it connotes sort of a certain tavern feel. And that could be maybe part of the factors, like what kind of, you know, a cocktail lounge or whatever you want to call it, we want to invite and incentivize as part of it. Now, I don't know how you
I was gonna
distinguish
say,
that.
how do you tell somebody,
I-
please, here's a liquor license, but we're gonna tell you
But
exactly
I
what
think it's
you're-
worth it, I don't know the answer.
Okay.
But I think it's worth kind of noodling that, because I think there is, same with the e-bike conversations, there's e-bikes and there's e-bikes, right? I think there's bars and then there's cocktail lounges, right? And how do we kind of incentivize the
You
kind
have
of
food.
aesthetic that, you know, is more congruent with the kind of lifestyle.
We hear you.
and
We'll
culture
look
that
at
we
it and
have.
present several options for consideration.
Tony?
So I gotta ask, what are we after here?
Right.
Why is it important that there be a heavy population in downtown Highland Park at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night? Of what value is that to our residents?
The stores aren't open.
The stores aren't open. We have restaurants that would be willing to be open if somebody made a reservation for 10 o'clock at night.
Here, Councilman Blunt,
Some restaurants get customers like that, and some don't. I think I'm a little concerned about what it is we're asking for. Vibrancy is nice, but I don't really know what it means. It's like character, the character of Highland Park. We all think we know what that is. We all think we know how to maintain it or expand on it, but it's an amorphous concept. To me, if vibrancy doesn't bring in revenue to the city, it's not really the city's business. If the city can help businesses generate revenue for themselves, certainly we should do that within the realm of what is within the city's purview as local government. So I have a little concern about where we are leaving off our obligation to our residents to live in a certain kind of community and trying to promote, I won't use a hyperbolic description, but trying to overdo the concept of nightlife in downtown Highland Park. We have limited space. We're not Chicago. We're not New York City. We're not Evanston. We're a community of a certain size, and I feel our principal obligation is to our residents. The principal experience we should be generating should put our residents' interests first. There's nothing wrong with going to another community to have dinner once in a while, as long as we can also have dinner in Highland Park. And we have good choices in Highland Park. Whether one individual or another feels we ought to have a different kind of restaurant is an anecdotal issue, but generally we have started to develop a good balance in Highland Park. And so I'm concerned with where we are leaving off our interests in managing the experience and lifestyle that residents who lived here for a long time have come to expect.
I appreciate your comments. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about the restaurants that are in the central business district and which ones have bars. And so, to your point, how many more, what are we missing? Because we already have those bar opportunities in Ravinia, we have those bar opportunities in the central business district by a multiple. It's not just one. So I guess it's like, so what does this add to, say, a bar without a restaurant when we already have all these opportunities for people to gather at bars?
We have restaurants that, after a certain time of day,
Become bars.
They
Right.
have live entertainment. People
Right.
go there to have a cocktail and to listen to music, and I'm all for
Which
that.
is great, but how
But
many-
I'm not sure that we need to move so heavily in that direction. But I'm interested in hearing whatever data you come up with, both in terms of the value and advantages of moving in that direction, and again, revisiting some of the concerns and considerations. I'm not sure about the DUI issue. We get people driving through Highland Park from other communities. It's a little hard to measure that. But there are some very real concerns that ought to be identified as something other than anecdotal discussions.
John?
Yeah, no, we're not here to brainstorm like different types of bars,
Right.
obviously, and I appreciate like where your perspective, where it's coming from. There's a whole group of residents that are probably a different demographic that like want a place to go watch the Bears game tonight. Where are they gonna go? That's just one example. And again, like there's a million different use cases of where people are wanting to go that are currently lacking within the walls of Highland Park.
Totally understand that.
So maybe a few need to get TVs.
So, Mayor, can I say,
Sure.
just in the interest of time,
Yep.
I feel like we're really deep diving in.
Yeah.
It would be beneficial if we just get like yes, no on the policy, so we have time to talk about it, if that's
I'm a
okay.
girl. I
And I
can
just,
answer yes, no.
and just a reminder too, living document. So if this is a 5-year plan we're putting together, this is not all in the next 6 months, this is not all in the next year. So we're gonna do our best in that, but we're, Councilmember Littler, about it, we can't guarantee that, right? So just keep that in mind, that we can always add back in later or add, subtract, etc. So the next one has 2 parts. It's in relationship to vacant commercial properties. Sorry, I took my glasses off, so this is a little trickier. One is the support for looking deeper into a commercial property registration. From what we've learned so in our research so far, these are very tailored to the individual communities, so that's why we're asking before we move forward with that. And then also the idea of establishing that vacant property as a nuisance. So we're looking for your feedback on both of those, please.
All right, so as far as I'm concerned, this has been the thing that has vexed me the most the entire time I've been in office. It's made me crazy, and if there's anything we can do to mitigate this problem, I'm all in.
Yay.
Yes or no?
Yes, and some other things, like if a property owner has lots of properties, many of which are vacant, can we prohibit that property owner from participating in SSAs or TIF districts? Can we
Or
prevent
building new
that
things?
property owner from applying to develop other property, unless it's to tear down a vacant or blighted property. So those are some other things to consider, but yes, I'm in favor of that.
Thanks, Bristol.
Yes, yes, and they're great ideas.
Are we saying yes to both, or just the
Yeah.
registration? Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
And can I just clarify,
Sure.
those aren't alternatives,
Right.
those
Right.
can be used together.
Together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Annette?
Okay, so I'm gonna do more than a yes, I apologize, but having seen all the work that BVI put in and gone through the research and working with them for these past couple of years until I'm no longer the liaison, I've done a lot on this, and I'm really grateful to them for everything they brought to us. So I think a registry should be started yesterday, so absolute yes on that. What I would like to see, and then I also agree that I would really like to see the nuisance ordinance put in place. And what I would like to see is sort of a tiered approach, and I'm just gonna mention some of these things so that when you do your research, you can kind of look at them. Part of it has to do with, in terms of limitation, I like the idea, first of all, the registry is for everybody. That's just so we know what the heck is going on, because how else can we judge it? As far as the registry goes, what I've seen in some of the ordinances that have come out is a tiered approach. So it is storefronts on the first floor that are the most important that we focus on, number one. Number two, I would have a way of defining what is a nuisance and what is blight. So you have to register when your property is going to be vacant. After 6 months, I would say I would look at that as sort of a period. That's when you actually have to pay. It's not a permit, but it's almost like a maintenance cost that we make sure, and these funds are going toward the beautification in that area, in case, God forbid, you stop cutting your lawn or your grass in front of your area, or the flowers are all dying because you're not watering because it's a vacant area. So there's a fee for that. And it's a fee, it is not a tax. That's at the 6 month mark. At the 1, 2, 3, and 4 year mark of vacancy, first of all, at the 1 year mark, you are deemed officially a nuisance. And as you go to the 5 year mark, you become a blighted area, because that area has been for too long open and vacant. And we do have a couple of properties that are in the 12 and 14 year mark, and they are still just sitting there, and it's horrible. So I would do it tiered, and it would go, I would say in the low tiers for those first 5 years that it's a fine on an annual basis. And then at the 5 year mark, it goes up really high. And what they did in San Francisco, which the law was determined as a tax law, a vacancy tax, that was overridden and booted out. But in Oakland and in Berkeley, those, as Corporation Counsel had pointed out, it did stick as a vacancy tax. I am not advocating for
District of
tax.
Columbia.
And District of Columbia and our various towns around Illinois, but I would not bring the word tax into it. I just think that there's a fee for us to monitor this and for us to see what's going on. And it is not enough to show that you've been making some efforts. If the property is still vacant after a year, after 5 years, there's a different designation. And in those places, as you all know from reading our packet and that memo, the fines went up to between $10,000 and $20,000 on an annual basis for the blighted properties, and that's after the 5 year period. So I'm not saying that this is what we should do, but you had some wonderful points in your memo, so I wanted them to be on the record here also, so that it's part of the public record. And I liked looking at the size of the vacant lot, but I mean, if you're in the Central Business District on the corner of 2nd and Central, on the corner of 1st and Central, you are right in the face of Highland Park. And if you're in the middle of Central Avenue, when we've got all this stuff going on and this property sits vacant, we need you to do something about it. And staff has been doing every carrot they can.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been the bane of our existence, and I think it's time to move on, reclassify, and let people know that they are being a nuisance or they are a blight. I mean, it is an insult to the beautification of the city for our main district to have any kind of thing. First floor, storefront are my main concern, and that's the way I would categorize it.
What, counts as being occupied? Is it a letter of intent? Because for some folks, it's gonna take them more than 6 months just to get their act together to open.
A letter of intent with a start date on the lease is sufficient.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
John?
Great point.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of like wood to chop with respect to how this gets done,
Mhm.
right? And a lot of more research to do and thinking through how penal we want to be. And I would lean towards like, let's be really aggressive here. But supportive of both, absolutely, and looking forward to further dialogue.
Right. Amy?
Yeah, yes to everything that's already been said. I as aggressive an approach as possible, within whatever we can do legally.
In the state of Illinois.
In the state of Illinois, and yes to those 2 bullet points. And that's, that's it. And some of those creative ideas that Tony mentioned as well. Councilmember Bloomberg.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Andres?
Yeah, I support those 2 things plus.
Yep. Absolutely.
And Mayor, on the plus, there is such great enthusiasm for this. One other thing I mentioned, it's not something that you can take as a council, but something that you can consider petitioning your state legislators.
Right.
It's a concept I mentioned before. Right now, that there's an incentive for property owners to have vacant property to get a tax break. We've attempted before in Illinois, unsuccessfully, but maybe Highland Park wants to lead the way to get state legislation that would eliminate the incentive for, or just change the way in which vacant property is assessed. We can't do that alone,
Right.
but we can get.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you raising that, because I think for people who have said, oh my God, we've got these vacancies and they've been around for so long, we are stymied by the state, and it's been very frustrating for all of us who really share the prioritization of getting these storefronts filled and having no real way to kind of get the property owners to take action. So happy to start the initiative, absolutely. Okay, Erin, city-owned property.
Yes, so next up, policy question. Do you want us to explore in the next 5 years redevelopment of city-owned properties, specifically metro lots in this ask?
So I think there are a couple of things to note, and I know you want us to wrap it up and give you yes, no, and of course I'm not. So, but under House Bill 3438, which is hopefully dead on arrival, but the public transit fiscal cliff fix, the comprehensive bill that was considered and passed by the Senate in the last session, but not introduced in the House. So there's this enormous fiscal cliff that's facing the Chicago region. One piece of that legislation is for the Northern Illinois Transit Authority, the new RTA, to have control over transit proximate property and create transit-oriented development. So as a group, the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus took no position, but the councils of government, we are the part of the Northwest Municipal Conference, we are putting together a statement that says we oppose the seizure of local control in terms of property. And so the city, I think, if you're interested in this, should really start to take action. But this is something that's of interest. We know that our parking isn't what it used to be, that people's use of Metro has diminished. But this is a real opportunity both to create housing, but also to create vibrancy and possibly more storefronts if you want those, but to promote more affordable housing. Andres and I have talked significantly about the lack of middle market housing, and so this might be the beginning of a solution to that. So I would like to look into it. I think there are opportunities. We don't want to take away from parking for our downtown, but I think also by doing a survey, we can see where are people going, where aren't people going. And if they're periodically using it for a video or periodically using it for the art show, that's great, but I don't know that that should stop us from moving forward in this sort of initiative. John?
I feel a little mixed about it, but I'm happy to get more information about what can be done with it.
Okay, great. Marissa?
I'm in favor of exploring as well.
Thanks, Annette.
I don't know how staff's gonna deal with all of this, because
Right.
I am too, but the one thing I will say, I would like you all to look at it further, but and I just want to clarify, because something came up about the lot, and it was my understanding that we as a body were specifically going to reevaluate after all the events and everything at the end of the season, Port Clinton and events, and the the lot still. Because I do want to give kudos to staff. The best report I have seen come out of this office in the 5 years that I've been on the council has been the report about the lot. And I thought it gave us a lot of flexibility, even if we put down grass, to phase in something that I thought, especially now that, you know, we don't have as much of a front lawn at the library, but I love what they're doing. I just want to see more green. And so I definitely want to explore it, but I also want to underscore that it was my understanding that we didn't just say a flat out no to the lot. We said it for this year, we said we'd revisit.
We're gonna
how
talk about
events work.
2026
Right,
events in
and
the
we
next
have
month.
multiple
Yeah.
parking lots over
Right.
here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think that's where a survey comes in and tells you how much use there is.
Exactly. So yes, for more information.
Okay,
Plug
John?
for the lot.
Mayor, thanks for the background. I think your comments around metro usage are obvious relative to what we're seeing in terms of the parking lots. I agree with everything you said.
Thank you.
Yep.
Julie?
Well, I feel pretty strongly about this. I've
You've talked to me about this several times.
written to you and the city manager about it, and I've talked about it in committee of the whole. And I think there's urgency to it after your report just now to council about, you know, I think I'd like the city of Highland Park to determine what happens there, you know, not
A
just
random board of.
yeah, a random board. And I also think that there are so many opportunities, and yes, there are a number of parking lots. I do think the lot is, I do think the lot is better suited for this kind of development, and maybe a portion of it is, you know, a grassy playground area that you know, that is more central for families. Parking, I mean, you can build above, you can still have the parking, you can build above it, you can build the parking below it. And I also think that what I heard recently from a very knowledgeable person is that there's a lack of office space, that good office space that businesses would like to have their you know, offices that are in the center of towns with restaurants and whatnot around. There's a real desire for that. So I think office space, residential, as I said, it even a part of it could be a nonprofit that goes there. There are all sorts of, you know, vibrant uses for that space. And I think about your former city of Elmhurst, which I visited at night, and I told you that it's got developments all along its tracks, and it's just lit up at night.
Right.
Looks so vibrant, and probably is really vibrant, thanks to your hard work there. You know, so I think it's a huge opportunity, and I'd like to grab it before it's taken out of our hands. I'd like to determine our own future.
Yeah. And if you think about like Bray House, right? So they've got the housing, they've got the market, they've got the park next door. Nice development. Andre?
Yeah, you know, I would just want to maybe say the obvious, but just to state it, you know, we also have been talking about a strategic plan, you know, master plan for the city. And I would like us to say that this should be in the context of that. So yes, I'm open to that, but, you know, for us to make decisions based on what, if we open it up for ideas, but we haven't really nailed down or framed our strategic plan, we could be making one-off decisions without the bigger picture. So I would make that case. And the other is, I would like to see under advantages or goals, not only increased density, which I would agree with, but increased green or protection of green. So, you know, really good urban development that wants more density also pays attention to protecting certain areas from that increased density. So I think we should make it really explicit that that is part of the objective.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, last but not least, do you want us to look, for the next 5 years, have consideration of closing Central, a portion of Central? Doesn't mean permanently, it could be permanently. We've come back with multiple looks at this, should you want us to pursue this further. So it could just be Sundays closed, it could be weekends closed, it could be seasonal, it could be permanent. Just looking for a yes, no, do you want us to look into this?
All right, well, again, I'm not gonna give you a yes now, that's something that I've been urging you guys to look into. So major cities throughout the world do this, where they shut down their main drag, at least on Sunday afternoons, for families to gather, people to ride bikes, games, music, what have you. When the Taste of Highland Park occurred and we had Central shut and nothing happening during the day, it was a missed opportunity, I felt, again, for families to be able to be out there playing. There's modular places that you can put together. We could have had live music. I talked to gearheads, and they were like, this is great, because all these people are coming over here, and there was not much going on, but they were shopping at least. So I would like to explore it. I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's not a full-time thing by any stretch. I still remember when Central was one-way going east, which was also a very stupid thing, so let's not do that and let's not shut it down. But I think periodically, if major roads in major cities can be shut down to support vibrancy, especially in the summertime, there's all kinds of cool, fun programming that we can do, and that's one of our goals.
Yes, I would like to explore being able to close Central Avenue or other parts of our central business districts, not just one evening a week, but during the day. One of the issues of closing Central down with Taste of Highland Park is you've got Taste of Highland Park out there. Wouldn't it be nice to allow store owners to come out onto the sidewalks, to have pedestrians throughout the downtown, through the day and into the evening? I've seen it in Arlington Heights during the summer. It's enormously successful, and it's peaceful. It's wonderful to walk around and to move from place to place. I would love to see that. And yes, I remember the stupid decision to make something. Yes.
So I would say yes, but I thought now would be a good time as any to mention, I know we're gonna talk about 2026 Port Clinton infrastructure, but this idea, and I've spoken to many of you about putting some type of urban play space or rubberized hills or something in Port Clinton for more families to gather, as I've seen like another summer has come and gone with kids running up and down the ramp at Walker Brothers and having nothing to really climb on. I think this will obviously help businesses. It'll have people stay longer, for more for the kids to do. Kind of what I'm envisioning, and we can talk about details later, but something like Northbrook Court's Treehouse or the Preserve. They have that turtle, like rubberized hills. So that in conjunction with, Sundays open for families and kids to have something to do and gather, and this will be great for vibrancy and businesses.
And just so we're aligned, reviewing Port Clinton, just the plaza, is already on the work plan. So looking at bathrooms and something there, this is just, the request was close Central, like specifically from first to second. Yeah.
But it is
So
related,
that-
sort of.
Yeah, kind of just in my mind goes.
It goes together, okay.
Yeah, so, thank you.
So, I actually, couple things. I do want to comment on what Marissa said, because I love that idea. And to me, Port Clinton, in terms of its coziness, its size, the way the stores go around it. And I mean, look, there are some constraints. What is it? Constraints, thank you very much. And that is size. And that's one of the reasons why I like the lot for the bigger things. And I think that an open area for kids to run around in there is phenomenal. But I also, on the other side of it, to answer the specific question, I walk store to store, and I have every single storekeeper that I speak to dreads the day we close the street. They don't want people in the middle of the street. They want cars driving down, people trying to park, people walking back and forth. And I don't mean to speak in their name, but I can tell you that is what I hear from them all the time. So I would love to see Port Clinton really built up as our community sort of center, I always think of the gazebo like around Hubbard Woods and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is the Port Clinton, and it's a really gracious area. If it was softer, which would ask about or beg the question or not about the infrastructure, it needs to be changed. And that's the way I would envision updating it, so that it could become kid-centric, picnic-centric, not picnic on the ground, but by the little tables and everything. And I think there's a lot of coziness there. But closing the street here when we are trying so hard to support our businesses, if anything, I would like to see additional when we have like the art fair or something like that, so that those booths are not closing off our street. That's one of the reasons I'd love to see them in the lot, so we could bring people in on Central, up and down First and Second Street, by car and on foot. And I don't want to take away from that traffic and that buzz. So I'm a no on that one, but just one voice.
Yeah, I wonder if we have a little kind of chicken and the egg issue here, Councilmember Littlewood. I think your comments make sense, and obviously the feedback that you got from store owners makes sense, but I wonder if the challenge that they're facing is because we don't have a place like Councilmember Bruckman just pointed out, where families are able to hang out and spend time and have that foot traffic already sort of organically there. So I'm really happy Councilmember Bruckman brought that up, because I think it does go very much hand in hand with what we're talking about here. It is on here, which is great in terms of, right, number 4, for next year's plan, or 2020 plan. So I think we can't look at these things in a vacuum. They're all interrelated. They're all part of a larger plan. So yes on this, 100,000% yes on the Councilmember Bruckman's idea as well.
Yumi?
Okay, I want to actually quickly say something, I'm squeezing in something that's a little off topic, but I'm going to tip my hat. I was going to want to tip my hat to city staff and to Noah Plotkin for a fabulous summer concert series. Last Friday was just off the charts amazing. The Radio Free Honduras was just incredible, and Ravinia Festival level, you know, in Portland Square, it was just incredible. And Noah Plotkin says there's more to come. And I did want to say too that Bitter Jesters, Nick DeGrazia said when he was running the Bitter Jester competition in Portland Square that it acted like a natural amphitheater. There was that feeling, there was like a natural amphitheater. So hopefully the Portland Square can be a number of different things, including having the play area, because I think that comes up very consistently as something that feels important there. And I wondered, and I think I've written to you about this, if we could ever talk to Walker Brothers about opening the east side of the restaurant so that it opened into Port Clinton Square. Right. You know, is that something we could offer an incentive to do?
Well, we've also asked them if they open for dinner again.
Open for dinner, but certainly to open to the
We
square.
have, yeah,
Okay.
and unfortunately.
Well, it's, okay.
I just want you to know we have followed up, for
We
sure.
followed
Yeah.
up with them on
Yes,
that.
Yes.
yeah, we've had
Yes.
meetings with Ray Walker
Okay,
himself.
well, I'll have more to say about that later. I am a yes to closing Central Avenue on occasion. I don't know that every week in the summer makes sense. I mean, maybe it's,
It could be first Sunday or whatever.
yeah, first Sunday, exactly, that kind of thing. And to your point, Evanston had a fair this summer. They closed like an insane number of streets in the central business district. I was shocked at how many streets were closed, for this fair that they had, and Chicago does it. I don't know why we can't do it as well. And there are plenty of cities. Wilmette does it every weekend during the summer, to great effect.
Right.
So, yeah, I support exploring this.
Right, thanks. Andres?
Yeah, I think in the spirit of Councilmember Bruckman's connecting the street discussion to Port Clinton, I would suggest that we actually expand it to the entire CBD. That we, to make a decision about about Central between First and Second Street, about what that could be. I think we got to look at the bigger CBD experience, not just Port Clinton. That's a big part of it, but we invested in Second Street. We have a restaurant, important restaurant going on First Street, and then we have the place of remembrance here. So what is the CBD experience, right? And we have people that will want to go there to the place of remembrance and then involve themselves in what's happening across the tracks and vice versa. And then we have the west of the tracks, east of the tracks, always a challenge. So my encouragement to staff is do not look at just closing that one block as the decision. The decision is what is the CBD experience, totality, and then what is the role of closing down that block in the light of the bigger picture about what the CBD experience is day to day, on the weekends, once a month, right? And really have a bigger sense strategically of what we want that to happen.
Sounds good. And I think people, I'll call you 1 second. You know, we had the master plan from, what was it, 1976, and already in that, they talked about the challenge of the train tracks bifurcating the two sides and it being too spread out, and that the central business district is too big for a community of this size. So that should also be part of that conversation as well. Mimi?
I wanted to share for anybody who wasn't able to make it to the Taste of Highland Park. I did run into Barissa a bunch of times at it. I ran into an ad, and I'm
I
calling
think
it-
all of us were probably there.
We were there, most of us were there for the opening day moment. The feedback was just phenomenal. And you said you heard the same thing. People saying it was the best thing they had ever seen Highland Park do. I literally heard things like that, and I randomly went up to 30-something, 40-something couples just to do my own polling. I was just curious. It was, people were just ecstatic.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's if you were able to capture that in the feedback, but that's what you said you heard the same thing.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, okay, do you want to start on this and then we will follow the meeting with the remainder of this, because this is about
That'd
an
be great.
hour.
Yes.
And dinner is at 6:45 or 7?
7.
Okay.
Okay.
Great, so,
Okay,
Let's go.
excellent. Thank you.
budget, thank you.
Okay.
Good conversation, everybody.
Yeah, this is a big conversation. So if you think we're excited about economic development, we are even more excited about the budget process.
Capital improvement.
The budget is our principal policy document. I mean, it's a large document, but it is such an exceptional read because it's guiding the city's activities for the upcoming year, as well as we take a look at our 10-year capital plan. So very, very important discussions. As certainly the council knows, we start in the spring of every year. I mean, we work on the budget year round, but formally we start in the year in the spring and May as we work towards our upcoming fiscal year. And the other important thing in our organization as staff, very important, is that every single person has a role in the budget process and has an opportunity to have an impact on that budget process. So I do want to just take a moment to recognize our exceptional staff that are here. We have a number of supervisors here, so if I could just recognize everybody. I'm going to start right here with Ashley Palbitska, Assistant to the City Manager, Chief Lou Jogman, Commander Sean Curran, Marcus Martinez, and Steve Elrod, our Corporation Counsel representing Elrod Friedman. Everyone met Jamie Elder, Business Development Manager, Don Jensen, Water Plant Superintendent, Annette Carted, Assistant Director to Public Works, Joe O'Neill, Deputy Public Works Director, our Public Works Director, Ron Bannon. You're going to hear from Director Bannon in a moment. You're also going to hear from our Finance Director, Christine McCullew, in a moment. Amanda Bennett, Communications Manager. Laura Lukasik is Deputy Finance Director. Joel Fontaine, Director of Community Development. Manny Gomez, City Engineer, and our Fire Chief, Joe Schragi. So this is just a few of the professionals that work on the budget process. We have a comprehensive PowerPoint presentation for the public that may be watching this. And hopefully everyone is, because this is a great presentation. We have a wealth of information on our website, and we encourage people to contact us if they have questions about any aspect of our budget process or city operations. We start every year formally with reviewing the mission of the city. And so that mission is reflected here. We make sure that it's reflective of the policy direction that the City Council wants us to undertake. And so we reviewed this in May. And you can see the mission that's going to guide us for fiscal year 26 reflected there. And then we also review our priorities, and we added a new priority of vibrancy for fiscal year 26. So when that fiscal year starts, you're going to see at the bottom of the screen, we've already updated the logo there that reflects vibrancy and of course the priorities. And so as different initiatives come up, well, the first question that we ask ourselves is, does this align with our mission? Does it align with the priorities, which is the city's foundation? So the budget schedule was established again in the spring, and so you can see where we're at in terms of the overall budget process. And then we have a slide towards the end of the presentation of where, what our immediate next steps are going to be. And then this is everything that we are going to cover today. So we certainly welcome council questions. I know we've had one-on-one conversations with you up to this point. We have formal meetings coming up with you to dive further into the proposed budget that everyone received. For the purpose of this committee of the whole, I'll just remind really the public that this is a conversation for the city council to have policy discussion. So if there are any questions or feedback or recommendations from the public, we invite you to contact us certainly at any time. And with that, I will turn it over to Christy that'll guide the next part of the presentation.
Thank you, Gita. Good evening, everyone, Mayor and City Council members. It's an honor to continue presenting the 2026 budget. So here we have our proposed total revenue, both operating and total. At the top, we've got the trends, which we have 2026 operating revenue of $100 million is expected to be just slightly lower than 25's estimate, with 25 expected to be 2% higher than 2024's operating revenue. Please note at the bottom there, operating revenue does exclude debt proceeds, debt and TIF increment financing tax levies, asset sales, and capital-related grants, reimbursements, and most transfers between funds. That is excluded from operating revenue. 2026 total revenue of $150 million is proposed for 2026, and which is expected to be 24% higher than 25, mainly due to $24 million of debt that we're planning on issuing. With 2025 expected to be 6% lower than 24's total revenue. The charts at the bottom show the city revenue by fund and by revenue resource. Charges for services, property taxes, sales tax, and other taxes make up roughly 65% of the city's revenue sources, with the general fund, water fund, and sewer funds accounting for 55% of the total revenue. This slide is going to show us year-over-year changes between 24 to 25 and 25 to 26. Significant drivers of the 2026 operating revenue increases are higher water and sewer rates, or higher water and sewer revenue driven by increasing rates, higher sales tax revenue, which is consistent with market, and higher internal charges. Net of estimating roughly flat interest income, lower operating grants and reimbursements. And then when we look at the 2026 non-operating changes, those include differences year over year between transfers between funds, debt financing, and capital grants and reimbursements. Yes?
Why is not sales tax on the 2025?
Yeah.
I will have to take a look.
Similarly, internal charges isn't on 2025 either.
It may, these are like top increases and decreases between 24.
Oh, okay.
Between 24 and 25, it's probably a net zero.
Okay.
These are revenue changes.
Great.
The property tax levy change in 26 is a reduction in revenues. But I think in our budget, we've got the 7% sort of penciled in, 8%, sorry.
Yeah.
So how do we have a reduction there?
The property tax levy, it's actually, I'll go into the next slide. We're actually allocating more funds in 26 to the debt levy piece of the tax. And then the operating side, mainly general fund, is being decreased with an overall net increase of 8%.
So this is more of like the cash flow movement versus
yes,
the net
it's
revenue.
a reallocation of the tax levy. Okay, so here's the general fund, which is the city's biggest fund. 2026 operating and total revenue are expected to be 3% lower and 2% higher respectively than 2025. 26 operating revenue is impacted, here we go, by higher reallocation of property tax revenue from the general fund to other funds to minimize the proposed property tax increase. Also impacted by relatively flat interest income, and the 2026 total revenue is impacted by higher capital-related grants and reimbursements in the general fund, 26 versus 25. The chart at the bottom shows our revenue resources or revenue sources from specifically for the general fund. As you can see, sales tax is roughly 35% of the revenue source, charges for services at 14%, and then sales and other revenue at 13%, and state income tax at 10%. 2026 water and sewer revenue are combined in this data. Total operating and total revenue for both water and sewer are expected to be 3% higher and 20% higher respectively than 2025, mainly due to debt financing. As you'll see, the sources of funds, 27% being the $7.9 million of the IEPA 0% interest loan. The 2026 total revenue is impacted by the capital-related debt financing, grants, reimbursements, and transfer between funds, consistent with the proposed 10-year capital improvement plan. As you can see for our sources of revenue, the user charges, which are the water charges and sewer charges, are significantly customer driven, with 67% of our revenue coming from those two sources in water and sewer. All right, next we're going to go through and share the proposed tax and fee changes for 2026. These were discussed at the spring workshop, and follow-up information was provided to council, if appropriate, on some of these. So here is the list that we're going to go through, and the city strives to diversify our revenue stream and manage expenses to minimize the financial impact to the city's residents.
In the interest of time,
yeah.
do we need to go through this again? Because we did go through this in May.
We can just go
And
to,
it's like,
if you just want to confirm, we can go through and
I think
confirm.
that makes sense. 'cause
Okay, yeah, we can do
Did a
that.
deep dive before.
Sure, yeah, I think the only thing that wasn't specifically pointed out in the spring workshop was the storage container fee.
Okay.
But I believe it was
Just go through.
city
Yeah,
code.
just go through.
Yep, was already. Okay, ambulance transport fees. They're updated annually.
Yep.
All right, good to go on that. We did speak about the animal impound fee, increasing the rates as per this slide.
Covered costs.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
We also discussed.
I didn't hear from anyone opposed to it, so,
So
yeah,
I
we
would
can
just
just,
go.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
we can just go.
Assisted living impact fees going from the 5,000 to the tiered rate. Okay. Demolition tax, increasing it from 10,000 and 4,500 to the 15, and 3,000 to the 15 and 4,500. The electrical vehicle charging, we did update this per discussion at spring workshop that the base charge is still what was recommended, and the loitering fee will be $1 a minute after 15 minutes. Grocery sales tax has actually already been approved by council for a January 1st effective date. We did want to point out that there is potential that we will bring this back to council on September 25th council meeting, only because there may be something in the ordinance that Illinois Department of Revenue wants added, and Elrod Freeman's working on a repeal and reissue of the ordinance if that should be the case.
Right, net zero impact.
Net zero impact, yes.
Thank you.
We talked about the low income program adding fees to like more like building fees and
They got
Permits?
it.
Okay, good.
One of the cartoons.
This was outdoor dining fee for use on street parking. This was discussed at August 11th Committee of the Whole and proposing the $300 annual fee.
Yep.
Tax levy survey, I did update it for tax year 24, which is collected in 25. Cook County did not have their tax bills publicly on their websites, so that's why in 24, like Glencoe, you see 0. Nothing's really changed here. We're still at 7.7%.
So the important talking point there is we have the lowest property taxes among the entire North Shore communities. For that portion of the tax bill that we can control for the city, ours is the lowest.
7 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, 7.7, and our portion is 7.7. Libraries is 2.5% or 2.5 cents per dollar on a resident's tax bill. Okay, so we're proposing the 8%, and it should be about $138 impact for the average $500,000 in EAB. This was presented to, no changes recommended. It's basically showing all of our local municipal taxes that we can impose, and we are we're in line with all of our neighboring communities that were surveyed. Storage container fee. Recommended that the fee be $75 per permit in 26.
John?
Okay.
Just to figure
No,
out.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Go ahead.
All
Christine.
good? Okay. There is a slight change to the water and sewer 5-year plan. Water rate increase is still the same as proposed at 3.5% as presented in the spring workshop. We did need to increase sewer rates by 4.5% for the next 5 years, 26 through 30, in order to be above fund balance targets and still do some of the CIP sewer projects that need to be completed. So looking for support of 3.5 and 4.5.
I think you're saying yes, and we are still a bargain compared to our neighbors.
Yes, so that you'll see for our water rates, we're still a bargain. Even the oranges are 2026 proposed rate, and everyone below us most of them are their 25 rates.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I'm still up for a couple more, just the numbers of the capital improvement plan.
Mhm.
We are proposing 40 million.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. $40 million in capital, and how that would be funded for 2026 is mainly through debt financing, fund balance drawdowns, and some grants and transfers and user charges there. 65% pay-as-you-go and 35% debt financing, specifically for
I'm happy to see
2026.
this investment in our infrastructure, given, John, to your point earlier, we never had an inflation included, so it was just sort of a flat 10.8 million, no matter what was needed. There was no variability based on acuity. It was ridiculous. So we are continuing to put serious investment into stuff that manages public safety, public health, all good.
So for over the next 10 years, the proposal is to add an additional $216 million of capital improvements, which does include the $40 million in 2026. The largest components of that investment are for water, sewer, streets, and fleet.
Terrific.
Okay, so then moving right along, we have Ron Bannon with.
Ron, we will see you after dinner, I'm sorry to tell you. After our meeting. Annette, you said, okay. All right, so yes, all right. So we're gonna recess, Steve?
Well,
Or do you want this to
We
continue?
could adjourn this and then continue this during the city council meeting.
Okay, because we,
and then the rest of it will be part of the city council meeting,
right, and then we'll do closed session after.
as part of the city council
As
meeting.
part of the city council. Okay, so
this
give
could
me
be
a motion
completely
to
adjourned.
adjourn.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So moved.
Aye.
Second.
Second.
Come on, yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank
But we
you.
have a second.